just want to put a bow on this and respond to one text that we just got and start by saying, thank you so much for texting in and listening to the show. It means a lot to us. Now, I disagree with the take, but let me read it to you. You decide what you think.
Okay.
And again, reacting to the fact that, in my opinion, Major League Baseball misses the boat by not making a special exception for LaMonte Wade and letting him be activated for this game and then put right back on the injured list. I think your response is very fair. The Giants could have just activated him and then dealt with a player who can't play for 3 or 4 more days. Absolutely fair response. But I would argue that while we're sitting here doing something that is completely different than what the rest of baseball is doing, and an extra roster spot is being given for this day, and this whole day is about awareness, and it is especially about awareness and acknowledgement of black players in baseball, to not make an exception for LaMonte is a mistake, because no big deal. And this is what I mean. So 415 texts in and goes, rejecting Lamonte's request was a no-brainer. It's a slippery slope. If you let him, the next request is for a World Series game. Request is, well, you did it for a meaningless game in June. Why not do it for a playoff game? 2 things grab my attention here. This ain't meaningless. In fact, it's the opposite of that for LaMonte. It is wildly meaningful. He is taking the lineup card out today. He's been talking to the organization about this. I know this for a fact from the moment it got announced. This is a huge deal to him. And if somebody was ridiculous enough in a World Series game to say, like, and I don't even know what the idea would be. You're telling me that in the World Series, someone's going to be like, we activate an injured player for 1 day and then put him back on the, like, what? That doesn't even make sense.
Right.
And secondarily, say no to that. You said no to this. It's not a slippery slope. This is completely different than anything baseball has ever done in its entire history. Therefore, I think that you can step outside the box for a second and not suffer anybody doing anything in the future.
In the response to John Shea, who asked, the response was, quote, rules are rules. And so, yeah, rules are rules.
Absurd. No, they're not. Well, you bend them all the time.
Yeah, and you bend them at your own whim. And if you didn't feel like you needed to bend it here, then, yeah, you don't want to establish precedent for future games. And maybe you've got somebody in the Field of Dreams game that comes up later in the year, and somebody who's from nearby that cornfield in Iowa, and they want to play in that game because, you know, my family grew corn too, so it means a lot to me. Could you bend the rules for me? I understand their point about rules are rules, and what you're saying, yeah, this is special, and it's at Rickwood, and you're celebrating the Negro Leagues, and LaMonte Wade is one of the few black players in your league, and he's fighting hard to play, and you know, he wanted a quick waiver so he could come out for a day and then go back on the IL for whatever, 4 days or 6 days or however long it'll be. And they shut him down.
Did you see what the PGA Tour board just did earlier this week?
They do it all the time.
Exactly.
Special exemptions for players.
Tiger Woods was just unanimously approved by the PGA Tour board to essentially have a lifetime exemption for all major tournaments.
Well, he got it for the U.S. Open. He didn't qualify for the U.S. Open. He was not eligible, but he got a special exemption for the U.S. Open.
Do you know what the PGA Tour board did? They looked at each other and went, rules aren't rules, because this means more. Now, in this case, to
money,
us.
It means more to them.
It means more to us than it does to him, maybe. But they basically looked at one another and went, this is different. This is different. And by the way, I'm a big fan of that. You know what I can't stand? And if you're a parent, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, I'm a parent.
You're a parent. And I don't like this whole idea of like, okay, let's say, you know, youth sports. Do we have to treat everybody the same? To what age level do you treat everybody the same? Because if you keep treating the kids who, when they swing, they miss by 5 feet, if you keep treating them the same as the players who show some ability, I kind of think you're actually doing them a disservice. It doesn't mean that you're wildly different and have all these, but yes, there are different rules for different people everywhere you go in life. In fact, many people earn that, right? If you're on time every single day and then you're late once, your boss is going to be like, we're good here. We're good here. This happened once. If you're late all the time and then you're excessively late once, I mean, what's the rule? That doesn't exist. Rules are rules. They get bent all the time for special people in special situations. I find this would have been one of them in my mind. That's all.
Yeah, could have been, would have been, and could have been, and then maybe should have been. But the Giants also had their opportunity to do what they needed to do to make sure that he was able to do that.
You're right.
And they didn't. So maybe it wasn't as big of a deal to the Giants in Major League Baseball as it is to LaMonte Wade Jr. And if I'm LaMonte Wade, I'm thinking, all right, Giants.
Just activate me.
Activate me.
Yeah.
If they won't do it, why don't you do it?
No, this is I'll turn it on the Giants as well without knowing how many days or I don't know. I don't know what the situation is. Privately, the Giants might have been like, "Hey, baseball, we're going to ask you to activate LaMonte. Will you please say no?" It's kind of like because maybe they're like, "We can't have him out there. He's not ready. We're not missing the rest of the season." This means something to LaMonte the person. LaMonte the person, but. It very much flies in the face probably of what's best for LaMonte, the baseball player.
Right.
And the Giants, the baseball team. So I don't know. I don't know the backstory. But it would have been nice, even if it was just a figurehead move, for everybody to be like, let's get the guy on the field tonight.
Yeah.
Let's just get him out there because it means something extra to him. Did you see what Bob Melvin did with Mike Yastrzemski? He pulled him aside before the game. He said, "You want to play left field tonight? Because that's where your dad and your granddad played. That's the grass that they were standing on. You want to play left?" Mike said, "I'm good. Put me where I normally play.
Right.
I just want to play in the game." But Bob was willing to do what?
Mix it up.
Let's make tonight different.
I don't know how much left field Mike Yastrzemski's played. Probably not a lot in his career.
I mean, a
lot of center, a lot of right.
Catch the ball when it gets hit to you.
Different angle.
Yeah.
Certainly
but it's
different.
A new field anyway. It's not like he's knows the angles off the wall or anything like that.
You're dealing with a lot more right-handed hitters, and when you're in right field, the angles are going to be different coming off a righty. I'm sure it's a little bit of an adjustment, but Yaz can handle it. He's a great fielder.
We mentioned NBA breaking news, and we'll take your calls on anything today, 888-957-9570. Tim Kirkchin is going to join us in 20 minutes. We love Tim. Can't wait to talk baseball with him leading up to the Rickwood